Hello, and welcome to Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we'll go ahead and get started. This is going to be our agenda for the call. We're going to look at current location tracking, the way that it is typically done nowadays. This is going to be something that those of you that are very adept to research are going to understand. And then we're going to see how it's really just a person-centered view, the way that we do this right now. Then we're going to take a look at some of the major effects of locations. We're going to look at the big things that affect change in people and place. Then we're going to move over to our application, and we're going to explore our location profiles, how we feel locations need to be represented. We're going to learn to track the details, because something you're going to hear in all of my webinars is it's all about the details, it's all about the texture. We're going to look at timeline options. Usually when people think timeline, one thing comes to mind: events. For Archoral, timelines go a whole lot deeper. We're going to look at location lineage. We're going to look at address history, modifications, location type, and then our standard event timeline. So for us, we don't have one timeline to track your location. We have 5. Then we're going to explore the connectivity between the person and the location and how we give you that enriched 360-degree view, which also helps with your input. So we'll discuss all of that stuff once we take a look at the application. What we're going to start with, how we currently track the information. Right now, in most applications, locations are held as individual events against individual people, which is a person-centered view. We're going to explore this theory by looking at my great-grandfather, Carl. This is just a little snapshot of some of the research that I've come up with for him. These are basically what I call the 4 chapters: birth, marriage, children, and death. That gives you the what happened, it gives you the when it happened, and it gives you the where it happened. But the events and the places are documented in the individual person profiles. They appear like background context for events. They almost become a secondary layer of information instead of a primary. And primary is what we're going to move them to, and I'm going to show you how to do that. The notes, the sources, the timelines, all of that information is encapsulated in the person profile, which then makes them segmented. It's fragmented data spread across all of the different people that interact with those locations. And we're going to show you how to put that fragmented data all back together without having to do any extra work. That's the fun part. That's the key, without having to do any extra work. People shape locations, but locations also shape the people. And the people's story is really incomplete without the full story of the place. One of the ways that I explain that at the high level is the major effects of the locations. So what the big stories reveal in the overall narrative of the person. So things like war, Hiroshima, massive effect on its people. World War II. This is about the lives of the people that caused the damage, the how, the what, the why. It's about those who lived through it, how the rebuild was done, the people that participated in that sort of an activity. Destruction. This is an amazing representation of community, compassion, resilience. Excavation. What caused that civilization to get lost? And then who discovered it? Who excavated it? Who translated the lessons learned and brought the past back into current day? That's people that affected this location. Death of an industry. That is a huge migration factor. Industry creates towns, it creates migrations, but then industries die. They die off, and the people that are at those locations change. what they do, what their support roles are, what their reason is for being there, has to do with the overall picture, not just the minute details of the individuals. It can also lead to death of cities, and we see this all over the world, really. Sometimes cities die off as needs changed, when needs of the people change. Urban modification. This is another big one. Locations change as the people change. So who came up with the idea to say, we don't need the big interstate anymore. We've got a better way of doing this thing, and what I'd rather have is a park. That takes people from being commuters, road warriors, to being dog parks and flower lovers. It brings nature back into the city. That is a concept that's constructed by the city planners, by the community as a whole, and locations are all about the community. Population growth. Did it go from industrial to residential? Here in Dallas, we can see that just in a 20-year span, it went from flat industrial land to the thriving metropolis, and those thousands of people started to set foot on that same piece of dirt. Sometimes population can exceed nature. This went from the beautiful seaside valley to skyscrapers galore. That location had a life change physically. Then there's this weird one that I found: when preservation meets progress. I had to throw this in there because they brought modernization over the top of preservation, and I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on this because it fascinates me. So those are the big elements that are captured within the location person connection. So what is that connection? What is the definition between both of them? So a location is more than a place. It's a story across time. And the way that I like to describe it to people is it's a piece of dirt. It's a GPS location. And that GPS location has a life. It has an evolution. It started as a field, and somebody pitched a tent, and then somebody built a cabin, and then it became a farmstead. Then it got bulldozed, an apartment complex and a Starbucks showed up. Then there's going to be a next evolution. Locations span decades and centuries, when our lives are just small chapters. They're almost just pages in the book of a location story. So we want to reveal how the personal, the historical, the environmental forces all intersect. And that's going to help explain why families stayed, why they moved, why they disappeared from our records, and how it helped shape the lives of the people that lived on that speck of dirt. So now we're going to move on over to the application, and we're going to see how Archoral takes that concept and really just kind of goes hog wild with it. So here is our application. When you log into Archoral, you're going to land here at your dashboard. This dashboard is going to give you the overview of what's in your archive. Now, we like to say that we're profile and media based. Being profile and media based allows us to create a really great cyclical interactivity between all the different profile types and all of the media in your archive. We take everything out of being stagnant and make it dynamic. So we have a couple of different kinds of profiles. Last Tuesday, we explored person profiles. Today, our conversation is going to be about the location profiles. So when you create a profile in Archoral, we give you a profile card. And this card is going to be kind of the container for all of the information everywhere in your archive about that particular profile. You can see that when I create these profiles, I can create them from the high level all the way down to the minute. So sometimes I do a home, sometimes I do a company, sometimes I do a city. You can really go from country to state to city to county to minute. It's really how you're wanting to capture your archive. So what we're going to explore today is we're going to explore the Mueller farmstead. And when I open that, I'm going to end up on the main profile page. Now I've collapsed all of those because it's kind of overwhelming and I like to go one by one. I'm going to give you so much information today. So if we start here in the facts tab, you'll see that we have those different timeline topics that I mentioned back in our agenda. We've got lineage, address history, modification, and type. This is what we can capture, how we can get those minute details. So if we look at lineage, this is something that is very important when it comes to your land deeds and your acquisition documents. Over here, we've got the date that it happened. The acquisition type can be any of these: donated, foreclosures, purchases, repossessions. If it's just the sale and not the acquisition of, you can document that whole transition and link it to all of the people that are related to that event. Then you can also upload any of the media that you have supporting this. So you can upload your land deed, you can upload your sale documents directly here. That is a pretty important piece when it comes to research because it's migration. Address history, as we all know, addresses change over time. Not only do borders change, county lines change, but I personally grew up in a home that was a Route 1 box 1818, but then when 911 came along, they restructured those and gave us an actual numerical and named street address. So half of my life is at one address, and the other half of my life is at another address, but they're the same piece of dirt. They're the same GPS coordinate. So when you're doing research, you need to understand, you need to know that so you know which courthouse to go to, which repository you're looking at. In our locations, address history, we've got, again, the date that it happened, the address that you're inputting. Our location finder is really unique. We have current address, we have vintage address, and we have partial address. What this allows you to do is link all of these together, to put all of these in a connected area so that you can see when things changed, what they changed, the reason for the change. And all of this is connected to Google Maps. So you can drop a pin, you can enter an address, it's going to search, and it really starts to make that connection between your vintage address and your current location. Location modification. This really speaks a lot to the people and what was going on in that environment at the time. When was the chimney put on? When was the granary put in? How did the evolution of the property happen? Because that can also tell you what the evolution of the people were, what their needs were. If it was a family farm and it became an industrial farm, it changed company ownership. There's all kinds of clues in that. So when we look in here, it can be a start date and an end date because a lot of times things don't happen in one day when we're talking about these big situations. Type of build. Remember when I said they demolished it and put up a Starbucks? Well, there you go. That's the reason. We can segment the demolition out from the new construction and give you the different people that were involved in that and how they did it. And then the reason for it, the explanation that you find. We want to make sure that you can have all of that in one spot. Location type. Remember I said field, tent, cabin, farm, Starbucks? That is another evolution of that particular spot that gives you the overall picture. So when we are in these, we're starting to see where we have location type and subtype. We do this because I'm allergic to tagging. In tagging, you have to keep the same naming convention for your entire archive. And since we're a legacy application, we are built with the intention of being passed on to future generations. And if you enter something in one way and the next generation enters the tag in another way, they're never going to talk to each other. So we have built in all of these lists. We've pre-populated these lists for you. So if it is a healthcare institution, our location subtype is going to give you a whole bunch of different options to choose from. Just like if it were educational, it's going to give you a whole bunch of ones to choose from. Now, you can take this from as high of a level as you want to as low as a level as you want. It's really a user choice. If I want to just say this is a civic building at this particular point in time, I can stop there. But if I want to, I can go down and I can say it is an embassy for this time period in its life. And that will give you that flow back into your location type timeline. All right, so those were those four. Our fifth one, this is the event. This is that event timeline that we're all very used to. The difference is we don't constrain you to just when it was purchased and things like that. We allow you to bring in everything that ever happened on that particular piece of dirt. So you can start to see how the people were part of the story. This really just gives you that community example of what was going on there. So when you say, okay, I have all this information for a person and I have all this information for a location, that seems like double work. It's not, because I like to be efficient. So when I go in here and I look at these icons right here at the very end, these are your indexer icons, your media indexer. You're going to see that some of them are black, and that means that I just text entered this. I came up here to add additional, and I chose that I was going to put in an event. I chose my event type, and then I put in as much or as little information here as I wanted to. When I go ahead and save this, it's going to put that entry in my timeline. There's no media supporting it. It's just a placeholder. So I can say that it's somewhere about 1845. Carl was born here. I can say, you know, location modifications were about June or they were about spring. And that is a placeholder for your knowledge so that somewhere down the line, if you feel like it, you can do more research, or if you find media that supports it, you can just go ahead and open it and drop that media straight into it right from there. So when that icon is blue, if you click on it, it's going to take you to our media indexer. And this is going to give you all of the media attached to that one particular event. So it doesn't matter if it's a photo, a document, a video, or an audio. We're going to bring them all in as long as they're indexed against that event, and we'll display them to you here. Then you can go through your indexer and start naming the people, start doing event details, things like that. So if you remember just a few minutes ago, I said I don't like to do multiple entry. We wanted to have that cyclical interactive relationship with our media. So here I have this Easter celebration, right? I went from the timeline event of the Easter celebration and I clicked on the media icon. So when I open event details, what is indexed against this particular piece of media, because this media became a source for that line item, I've indexed that it is the focus person. So this is Mr. Mueller's property. I named the event. I gave it a type and a subtype. He did a 2-day event, so I gave it a start date and an end date. And then the attendees, these were the people in this picture that I wanted it to connect to. So I went ahead and I put the people in. You can do the event organizers. This is where it's linked back to this location. You can do the vendors, all of that fun stuff. When you look at this, all of these people from one entry, all I did was index this one image and give myself all of the information that I could find. If I go back to Friedrich, I'm going to go over here to profiles, and I'm going to look for Friedrich. You're over here. So I can open Friedrich If I come to the timeline, here is that Easter celebration. I indexed that one piece of media once. Remember how I added all of those different people as attendees and organizers and vendors and things like that? We have a linked profiles tab. And this lets you see all of the people throughout history that have been connected to this one particular location. And it's going to give you, look at that. My mouse is too big. It covers it. It says attended and died. Carl, attended and born. Attendee, organizer, property owner. This is where you start seeing the community and you start being able to understand how many people interacted and how often they interacted. So you may input one piece of media 2 years ago and another piece of media today. And if you come in here and this number changes to 3, you're starting to see the relevance of that location to that person, and you're starting to be able to explore that a little bit more. So what may not have been an ideal thing to spend your time on is now becoming apparent that you should go explore that a little bit more. It also, by being able to attach people in so many different roles, in so many different ways, we've moved beyond biological, because a location really deals with more than biological, obviously. And it gives you more people to explore. So if you start seeing that Heinrich has moved up to having 25 interactions with this location, and Anna started with 1, but now she's got 15. Maybe I want to go and explore Anna's life. Maybe I want to go and do a little bit more research on her and see how she really connected with Heinrich, to see how they really influenced each other. Because based on a location, their interactions were obviously important. They both impacted that location, and that location impacted them. It's that cyclical again. So when you are trying to collect all of this information, you don't have to do it again and again and again and again for each profile that you want to connect it to. You can also do it in bulk so that you're not having to go one piece at a time. On Tuesday, we are going to have the webinar about how to bulk index. You can bulk index from the profile standpoint. You can bulk index from the media standpoint. We're really built to try and make everything easier, trying to make it as least complicated and the most rewarding as possible. So what we've covered today is that locations are usually background context for people. They're usually secondary. They're tied to a single person's story, and therefore they're locked in a container. They're fragmented. And with Archoral, we have extensive location profiles that capture more of the story. We get expanded timeline views. We have location, lineage, address history, modifications, location types, event timelines, and how it all connects to the people and the media to enhance the stories, to give you that 360-degree interactive view of photos, documents, audio, and video. Every single one of those media types plays within our archive. So you don't have to worry about opening QuickTime or opening Preview. Everything exists within your own environment. And it gives us the ability to look at people and how they interact with their environments. So that is all I have to say about that. So that's my story about Archoral. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for joining us today, and happy archiving.